Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a very rare but OP Cleric Warlock build guide for Baldur's Gate 3. Now this was a request from a commenter on a previous video from his D&D character. I really love the backstory, so I had to make this a thing. Now their backstory was, it was a cleric who was grief-stricken from not being able to save their companions, and they took a pact to be strong enough to never fail their allies again, sacrificing their soul for the good of others. I love that because a cleric worships a certain god, as well as the warlock is signed to a patron, so I think that this build is really unique. I've play tested a couple different ones that I wanted to put together, so I'm going to be starting off with this one, which is going to be more of a melee focused build. So we're going to go with the cleric here, and what's nice with the cleric is at level 1 you get to choose your subclass. For our cantrips, we're not going to be using anything outside of Eldritch Blast for damage, so we can go with like resistance, guidance. Guidance is just nice to have overall. Sacred Flame is not bad to take, but we're not going to be using Sacred Flame that much. So like Blade Ward, if you don't want resistance, you can grab Sacred Flame there. But our subclass, there's 3 different ones that we can go with, but there's one that I think stands above the rest. So there's a Life Domain Cleric, which also gives us heavy armor. We're going to go with the War Domain Cleric, which gives us Divine Favor, Shield of Faith, and the War Priest, which when you make an unarmed or weapon attack, you can spend a War Priest charge to make an additional attack as a bonus action. So that's pretty nice. And that can pair with the Warlock, who is kind of a caster melee class. I also think the Tempest is really great too, but we're going to go with the War Domain Cleric here. For our deity, you can choose whoever you want. We're going to go with Garl Glittergold, though. That's our man. And then for the abilities, this is interesting. It actually is quite a different build than you're probably used to. We're going to be focusing on mostly, we're going to dump strength, we're going to dump dexterity, we're going to pump our constitution and our charisma. Wisdom being our kind of main stat, but we're going to have our charisma at 17, our wisdom at 16 there, and then our constitution. Ideally, that would be a little bit higher, but that's what we're working with there. You can go with something like that, take it to 16, but yeah, we're going to dump our rest of our stats there. Now, what makes this build interesting is the way we're going to run about building it. So I'll be getting into the gear that we'll be using at the end, but for our next level, we're going to jump straight out of the cleric. Now, we do get that heavy armor proficiency, which is nice. At level 2, we get Channel Divinity charges, which allows us to do Guided Strike. It gets a plus 10 bonus to your attack roll, which is quite nice and make sure that we land our hits. But we're going to go into the Warlock, and this can make things quite interesting. So for our cantrips, we're obviously going to be taking Eldritch Blast. That is a given. Bone Chill also has some usefulness, prevents the target from healing till your next turn, and has disadvantage on its attack rolls. A little bit of synergy there. If you're the face of the party, take Friends. That gives you advantage on charisma checks. Super useful. For our subclass, there's the Fiend, which gives us Armor of Agathis, which gives 5 temporary health points, deals 5 cold damage to any enemies that hit you in melee range, and Arms of Hadar, which prevents targets from using their reactions. And then we also get the Dark One's Blessing, which gives you, whenever you reduce an enemy's health to 0, you get 4 temporary health points, which is nice, just to have that extra health. We can also go with the Great Old One. I think that either of these two are best, but we're going with the Fiend. I think that this is the best of the two. For our spells that we'll be selecting, Armor of Agathis is nice. Command we already have, but Command is really nice too. Also, something like taking Hex can be pretty useful. Make your attacks deal an additional 1d6 necrotic damage to the target and has disadvantage on its ability of its choosing. This is a bonus action. It can also be really nice because you can put this as a Hex Dexterity, and that actually makes it more likely to hit your targets. Hellish Rebuke's pretty nice too, but I like Armor of Agathis and then Hex personally for my choices of spells there. So we're now the Cleric Warlock, and this is going to get really interesting. So at our next level, we get another spell. We can take like Hellish Rebuke there, or Command. We already have Command, but Arms of Hadar prevents targets from using reactions, which is kind of nice too. But we're just going to go with Command for the crowd control purposes. It's pretty useful, and you'll see why. Now, for our Eldritch Invocations, we're going to take Agonizing Blast, which will add our Charisma modifier to the damage that we're dealing, as well as Repelling Blast, which can make Eldritch Blast knock people off the ledge because it'll push 4.5 meters away. I also really like Devil's Sight. Gives you sight in the dark up to 24 meters. Super useful, but we're going to take that later on. So that's that for the second level. As we get into Warlock level 3, we're going to get another level 2, or we're going to get our level 2 spell slots. I'm a fan personally, Cloud of Daggers, Hold Person, or Scorching Ray. One of those three is pretty good. I think that Hold Person has a lot of utility for other classes, but also Cloud of Daggers is nice just to be able to, you know, set and forget, let people run through it. Now, for our Pact boon, this is where things get interesting for the build. So there's Pact of the Chain, which gives us a little Quasite animal or an imp to follow along. Pact of the Chain kind of sucks compared to Pact of the Blade and Pact of the Tomb. So Pact of the Blade, you can summon a Pact weapon or bind our weapon, making it magical, and it uses our spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength or dexterity. So we'll be using charisma for damage, and that's why we dumped our strength and dexterity, because we're going to use bind Pact weapon, and then that will deal with our charisma modifier, making it so much more useful. We can also go with Pact of the Tomb, which will give us a few different spells, and later on it can be pretty nice, but I think Pact of the Blade trumps that for the purposes of this build. So I'll be getting into gear options at the end of this video, what we're going to be running with. Now for our next level, we're going to go with a cantrip. Friends is great, I would say, for, again, face of the party. Minor Illusion's really nice though, because you can use it outside of combat. All the enemies are going to group together, and that's when you draw a fireball. So that's pretty nice. For our next level spell, Misty Step's also pretty nice for a bonus action to get you into some better mobility. Scorching Ray can be kind of nice, but I think that we have better options. So either Cloud of Daggers or Misty Step I would recommend for our level 2 spell. Just depends if you want to have your concentration set on Cloud of Daggers or on Misty Step. Actually, Misty Step might have a bit more usefulness in this. And then we're also going to be getting our feat here, which there's a few different choices. You can go with like Warcaster to have advantage on your saving throws and concentration spells, which can be nice. Spell Sniper, learn to cantrip, and when you roll a critical hit, you have a 5% chance, more likely to land a critical hit. I do think though, for the purposes of this build, we're going to go with ability improvement, take our charisma up to 18, then we also level off our constitution at 16 so that we get a little bit more health there. You can see our health goes from 38 to 43, so that's quite substantial. And if you don't have if you have the amulet of greater health, you can just dump your charisma and put the rest into just focus on wisdom and charisma. But yeah, something like that looks pretty good for our level 4 warlock, level 5 total. As we get into level 5, this is where we get the deepened pack, so it gives us the 2 attacks with our weapon. We could also go and level up the cleric a little bit more, but I think that this, for the purposes of the build, is probably the better option to go with here. So counterspell is really nice just to have, shut down enemy casters. I love Fireball. I think Fireball can be really great. And Hunger of Hadar is also quite nice if you want to just chill in your darkness. Because what we can do is we can go with the Devil's Sight, gives us dark vision up to 24 meters. And then for our spell, we can take our Hunger of Hadar, which deals damage, and then the enemies are blinded in there. We can just chill in our darkness cloud. That can be pretty useful, honestly. So we're going to go with that. And we can also replace spell, take off something if we're not using one of these here, and then we could take Fireball. But that's your own choosing if you want to go with something like that. At Warlock level 6, we get another subclass feature. We add a 1d10 to an ability check. This is kind of nice just if you're the face of the party again, because that can really help out. For our next level 3 spell, Counter Spell is really great. It tries to stop a spell from being cast, or Fireball. Your choice, the damage option or the defensive option. Again, it comes down to what you need on your team. I would really like Counterspell, but Fireball is just too nice to not take. For our next level spell, we can go with Wall of Fire. I think that Wall of Fire is pretty great, just for setting up a wall, literally a fire that will deal damage. Dimension Dork is kind of like Misty Step for taking you and a teammate, but it does use an action instead of a bonus action. I think that we are going to take Counterspell at this level. I think that just is a better option, especially now we get a bit more spell slots to expend on Counterspell. And then for our next Eldritch Invocation, there's a few good ones here. We can have Rituals with Chromatic Orb, Ray of Sickness, and Silence, which can be decent, and they use a you can cast these once per long rest and they don't expel spell slots, which is really nice to have. Confusion with a Warlock spell slot's nice because Confusion can hit a group of enemies. This is a concentration, but it's like the Fireball of Crowd Control. Very, very useful. Sign of the Ill Omen can give you Bestow Curse. If you want to speak with animals, that can be nice just to have too. False Life is another decent option. But I think that Confusion is just a great spell to have, and the ability to cast it with a Warlock spell slot is really nice as well. So we're going to take that there. As we get into our next level, this is where things can get a little bit tricky, because we do have our level 4 spells that we need to select, and we can go with Dimension Door, which will take you and an ally, or we can go with Firewall. I think Firewall is kind of the better option there. And for our next feat, we can do a few different things. Alert +5 to initiative, always a nice thing to have extra initiative, but I think that ability improvement can be the better option there. Because we can pump our charisma up to 20. That's going to be our damage modifier, as well as our spellcasting modifier for all of our warlock spells. So it gets pretty nice. I think that is probably our best option. And we're going to be using gear that sets our charisma up to 22, and then we could also potentially take it up to 24. So it gets pretty nice. At level 5, we can get Flame Strike, which will do 5d6 of fire and radiant damage, which is quite nice. Make a pillar of fire, roar down in the heavens like the wrath of affronted angels. This is always prepared. Cone of Cold can be good if you have some synergy on your team. Hold Monster paralyzes a creature, can't move or act or react, and gives critical hits. This is nice because this will work on anything that's not undead. It also is kind of like Hold Person. It'll hold a person as well. We're going to go with Flame Strike, though. I think that's pretty decent for the damage that it deals. I think that once we get to level 9 here, Minions of Chaos is really, really great. People don't realize how good this is, because you bend a barrier between the planes and disgorge an elemental ally to follow and fight for you. So this uses a warlock spell slot. This does not require concentration, and it's going to be another creature to take aggro off of your teammates, so I recommend taking that one. It's great. Enhanced Leap is okay. It uses a spell slot. Whispers from the Grave, Book of Ancient Secrets, but Minions of Chaos, this is really just unreal. It's just miles ahead of all the other options that we got there. So we're going to go with that there. And then as we get into level 10, this is where we get another action. Fiendish Resilience. Choose a damage type, become resilient to it. You can pick a new damage type each short rest. Very versatile for a wide variety of reasons. For our next cantrip, we're going to go with Mage Hand. I think that that's just a smart one to go with. Poison Spray to 3 to 36 damage is quite nice too, but we're going to be focusing on something a little different here. And our next level spell, Cone of Cold, can be nice because we don't have any ice damage, and if we have someone that sets up water, it's nice to have an electric or a cold damage to do double damage with. I'm always looking for opportunities to set up water, and this is a great way to do this because it deals damage in a large range. Hold Monster is also really good too. It just depends what you think works better for your team. I think that this is great because this is like, if you set up water and you cast Cone of Cold, that can do 128 damage. That's insane. So that's what we're going to go with there. Also, if you want to, you can take off Hold Person and take Hold Monster. Or you can take off Flame Strike and grab that. Or Firewall. Really, whatever you don't find yourself using, you can always just swap it out for something like that. And then into our final level of the Warlock. This is where we get our level 6 spells. And we get the Mystic Arcanum. So, select one of your level 6 spells. Once per long rest, you can cast that without spending a spell slot. Super nice. That is really great. And we can even do something like Circle of Death, which devastates the target and all surrounding targets. This does a lot of damage. We can also go with our King Gate, create 2-link teleportation portals. This is more so big brain 200 IQ plays. Not super useful here. Well, I guess it does have some use, but there's better ones here. We also get Eye Bite, which causes dread sickness or putting creatures to sleep. There's a nice concentration, just guaranteed sleep. Always nice. Flesh of Stone, restraining them temporarily, turn to stone. And Create Undead can be quite useful too. If you don't have a Necromancer in your party, this is a nice one to take, honestly, because there's going to be a lot of corpses around that are just not being used. You can raise a corpse with this, and then we kind of have like some minions following us around, and it follows the lore pretty well. I like Circle of Death or Create Undead, so pick one of those two. That's your choice there. And then for our final spell, we can take Hold Monster, like I said, we missed out on. But yeah, Circle of Death or Create Undead, two great options. These are all mostly necromancy spells. I think that Create Undead can be quite nice, though, just to have extra bodies to take aggro. So there's that, and then we're going to get into a little bit gear options and how to play this build. So it gets quite interesting. We're going to be using the Birthright Hat, which will take our charisma to +2. This gives us 22 charisma, +6 to charisma checks, and then that means we're going to be dealing a lot of damage. So For our weapons, I guess we'll get into that once we get there. Cloak of Protection, just flat out +1 armor class. We have an armor class of 25, which is quite nice. Helldusk Armor. We don't need to use the Helldusk Armor. We can go with something else, but I think the Helldusk Armor is the best that I got for just the purposes of this build, as it gives us, whenever you succeed a saving throw, caster receives burning, and then you have resistance to fire damage, cannot be burned, and then we also get fly with a bonus action. So enough said. That's quite nice. Since we don't have fly from another option, it's good. Gloves of Dexterity. It's going to increase our initiative. That's something that we definitely want because we didn't focus on our dexterity. Stat spread's pretty nice. We'll have a +4 to our initiative, so we might move a little bit sooner. We have 11 meters of movement speed, and then we can also use Misty Step. We have dark vision range of 24 meters, so yeah, there's a lot of ways we can go about using this build. And then for our boots, we're going to use the Helldust Boots. Fails a saving throw, you can use your reaction Succeed, and then Hellcrawler, which is another teleport bonus action that deals fire damage wherever we teleport to. Surgeon Subjugation Amulet gives us a Paralyze on critical hit, and then the Killer Sweetheart gives us a critical hit, so very great synergy there. Plus the Caustic Band, Damage Rider of 2 acid damage. I also like just having 2 crossbows on hand. It's not a bad option for range, but we're obviously going to be using Eldritch Blast. We're a Warlock. That's kind of the main focus of this. So, Eldritch Blast, everything that you can. Eldritch Blast is great. 7 to 16 damage there. We're going to obviously want to be using Bind Pack Weapon every time that we attack, because that will take our damage up a lot. So that's 12 to 17 damage, which is a lot better than it was. And then we also have, I didn't even mention this, Viconia's Walking Fortress. When a foe hits you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to deal 2 to 8 damage, knock it prone. You get advantage on saving throws against spells. Spell attack rolls against you have disadvantage. We also get Reflective Shield. Reflects any projectiles target you back to the point of their origin. Super nice. And then Warding Bond as well. So that can be pretty great. We're going to be using mostly, like, look at that. Confusion's got a huge range there. Cone of Cold too. That's great for, if water is set up. Hold Monster can be quite useful too. You can also go with Hold Person. Upcast at level 5 will give us 4 targets to hold in place. And then you have your whole team go and jump them. Critical hits galore. This gets pretty crazy. Also Sanctuary, Healing Word to bring up downed allies with a bonus action. Quite nice, especially if you have your teammates going down often. Inflict Wounds to stop, or just to deal damage. Guiding Bolt, not the best, but it's an option that we got for spells. Divine Favor, which will increase the radiant damage that we're dealing. Bone Chill stops healing. Armor of Agathis, just nice just to have on us, giving us 5 temporary health points and dealing 5 cold damage. Hex to shut down casters, or shut down really anyone. This is really great against a certain fight in Act 3 that I don't want to spoil anyone. We also have Fireball for damage. Fireball plus Upcast. And then, yeah, a lot of these we have to upcast because we have the level 5 spell slots there. We also have Hunger of Hadar. And we got War Priest charges, which will allow us to do an attack with a bonus action. So we do have the double attack, so that's 3 attacks total. It's kind of nice, honestly. Fiendish Resilience, this is just what we get from our class, so we can actually resist a lot of different damage types. Bludgeoning damage, cold damage, fire, piercing, slashing. Do your research ahead of battles, because this can come in handy. Having the damage that you'll take from that is massive. So it actually gives us, like, pretty good, like, this is tanky. It's a lot tankier than you'd think a Warlock would be. But that's due to the fact we got the heavy armor from the Priest, or the War Priest, Cleric. We have a lot of crowd control options, we got a lot of mobility, we got a lot of damage options. So this is a pretty powerful class. I want to thank the lore behind this was great. I think that this is a really cool one. Vooligan, thank you so much for that comment. I thought that that was cool. And I'll be having another build guide coming here shortly. This is more so focused on being a frontline fighter, as weird as it is for a Warlock to be a frontline fighter. When we have 25 armor class, the ability to heal ourselves, the ability to have damage done to ourselves, and have the ability to do crazy amounts of crowd control, this gets pretty nice. Eldritch Blast can be one of our main sources of damage, being able to knock people around, and then just whatever types of weapons that we got. I'm using the Saloon Spear of the Night, but you can also go with the Blood of Lathander, and what I like about the Blood of Lathander is the fact that it'll bring you back, if you were to go down, it'll bring you back with health, and then it'll heal all the allies around you. So this can make us even tankier. but go with whatever weapon you prefer there. I think that this is what works pretty well. As a weird two classes to pair together, Cleric and Warlock, I think it works pretty great. So yeah, if you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Appreciate all the support, and I'll see you all in the next video.